In some parts of Nigeria, people still believe that when a person travels abroad, they must come back rich. If they don't, the shame is heavy. This story is about a boy named Elroy who left his small village with dreams bigger than the sky. Everyone believed he would return as a great man. But when he finally came back, what he brought with him shocked the whole village. Sit down, listen well. This story will surprise you. Elroy was born in the quiet village of Umudu. He was different from the other boys. While others played with catapults and chased goats, Elroy sat under the mango tree with his books. "Why are you always reading?" a boy once asked him. Elroy smiled and said, "Because one day I will leave this place and see the world." His father, Mr. Kenson, sold firewood on the roadside. His mother, Mama Elroy, sold boiled groundnuts in a small basin. They didn't have much, but they had love. "Elroy, come and eat," his mother would shout from the backyard. "Let him finish his book first," his father would say, shaking his head. "This boy wants to go to America with book, eh?" Elroy would laugh and reply, "Not just America, Papa. I will go around the world." The villagers used to tease him. "Elroy the traveler," they called him. "Elroy the book boy." But Elroy didn't mind. In his heart, he believed something big was waiting for him out there. He just had to find it. One morning when Elroy was 20, his mother received a phone call. It was from her brother in Lagos. "Eh?" she said on the phone, standing beside her stall. "He wants to help Elroy travel?" That evening, she told Elroy, "Elroy, pack your things. Your uncle says you can stay with him in Lagos. He has found someone who can help you get to Europe." Elroy stared at her, mouth open. "Mama, is this real?" "Yes, my son, but we don't have money. You will go by God's grace and small help from people." They sold the small radio Mama's wrapper and some of Papa's firewood stock. Neighbors gave small things. 200 naira here, 500 naira there. The village came together to send their boy away. The day he left, the whole village followed him to the bus stop. Some gave prayers, some gave advice, some gave fake smiles, already jealous. Mama Elroy hugged him tightly. Her wrapper was soaked with tears. "Remember who you are, my son," she said. "Don't forget us. I will make you proud, Mama," Elroy replied. His father placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Make sure you don't just disappear. Remember, it's not only about going, it's about coming back well." The bus pulled away. People waved. Dust filled the air. And just like that, Elroy was gone. Everyone believed the next time they saw him, he would be a rich man. But what they didn't know was that life abroad is not always sweet. Some journeys take you forward, some break you down. Elroy's own journey? It was nothing like what they imagined. Stay with me. The real story starts when he comes back. 3 years passed, then 4, then 5. At first, Elroy would call once a month. He sent photos too, pictures of him standing in front of tall buildings, wearing clean shirts and fine shoes. He even sent money twice. Mama Elroy would proudly show the photos to anyone who passed by. "See my son," she said, holding the picture close to her chest. "He's doing well in Europe. He will soon come back and build us a house." Even the elders in the village began to speak of him with pride. "Elroy is not like the others," they said. "That boy is going far." But then, the calls stopped. No more photos, no more money. Only silence. Mama would sit outside in the evenings, staring at the road, hoping to see someone bringing news. Her smile grew smaller each day. "What if something happened to him?" she whispered one night. Her neighbor replied, "Don't worry, Mama Elroy. Your son is fine. He's just busy with big things. You'll see." But inside, her heart was heavy. She could feel it. Something wasn't right. One Harmattan morning, when the sky was white and dry leaves danced on the ground, a rusty old bus stopped near the village square. Out stepped a man. His shirt was faded. His trousers were dusty. He held only one black nylon bag. His shoes looked tired, like they had walked for too long. People turned to look. Wait, is that? No, it can't be. Eh? That looks like Elroy. Mama Elroy was sweeping the front of the house when she heard someone call, Mama Elroy, your son has returned. She dropped her broom and ran barefoot to the road. Her heart beat fast. She saw him standing there, quiet, looking down. Elroy, she called. He lifted his head. Their eyes met. Tears filled her eyes as she ran to him. My son! My son! You're alive! She hugged him, but she felt how thin he was. Elroy didn't speak for a moment. Then he said softly, I'm sorry, Mama. I came back with nothing. The crowd was growing. Some stood with folded arms. Where is his car? One man asked. Is that nylon bag all he brought back? Another whispered. Maybe his things are still coming, someone suggested. Elroy didn't look at anyone. He just walked beside his mother, head low, carrying that small bag. And from that moment, everything in the village changed. He left with songs and cheers. He returned to whispers and stares. But Elroy's story was far from over. What happened to him abroad? Why did he come back with empty hands? And what would the village do next? Stay with me. The truth is just beginning to come out. After Elroy returned, the village felt different. The same people who once danced and sang for him now acted like he didn't exist. When he walked past, people turned their faces. Some crossed to the other side of the road. Children stared at him, then looked at their parents confused. Elroy no even greet me, one woman said. Why should he greet? He's ashamed, another replied. Nah so, big boy returns with nylon bag? Someone whispered under their breath. Elroy tried to sit outside like he used to. But every time someone walked by, they pretended not to see him. One afternoon, he greeted his old schoolmate. Good afternoon, Figo. Figo looked at him from head to toe and said, Ah, Elroy, you still day here. Then he laughed and walked away. The only person who sat with him was his mother. They would sit together on a wooden bench in front of the house. She didn't say much. She just held his hand sometimes. That was enough. One evening, Elroy and his mother sat under the mango tree. The sun was going down. The air was quiet. Mama finally asked him softly, Elroy, my son, tell me, what happened? Elroy sat still. His voice was low. Mama, I suffered. He looked into the distance, eyes tired. I got to Europe. I had no papers. I cleaned toilets. I washed plates. I slept on the floor. I shared food with our strangers. I wore the same clothes for months. I tried to start a business with a friend. He ran away with the little money I saved. Everything I tried failed. Nothing worked. Tears rolled down Mama's cheeks. Elroy, why didn't you come home earlier? I was ashamed, Mama, he said. I wanted to come back rich. I wanted to build you a house. I wanted people to respect me. But I lost everything. And when I had nothing left, I came home. Mama held his hand tightly. My son, listen to me. You came back alive. That is enough for me. Money can finish. Fame can disappear. But you are my joy. Elroy said nothing. He just rested his head on her shoulder. And in that moment, for the first time since he returned, he allowed himself to cry. Now the truth was out. The boy who left with hope had returned with scars. But what do you do when your dreams die? Elroy was about to find a new path, but it would not be easy. The village still had more to say, and one small piece of land would soon change everything. Days passed. Elroy stayed mostly indoors. He barely spoke. He barely ate. The shame was heavy. One morning, Mama Elroy stood by the cooking fire peeling yam. She paused, looked at her son and said, Elroy, will you sit like this forever? He didn't answer. She walked up to him, sat beside him and said, My son, I see how you look at yourself, like you are nobody. But let me tell you something, you are not useless. You are not shame. You are not failure. You are alive. And as long as you're alive, your story is not over. Elroy looked at her, his eyes red. Mama, I don't even know where to start again. She stood up slowly and pointed behind the house. Start there. Elroy turned and looked. Behind a small house was a large piece of land, full of tall weeds and dry sticks. The land had been empty for many years. It once belonged to his late grandfather. Elroy, Mama said softly, this land is still ours. It may look like nothing now, but something can grow from it, just like something can grow again in you. Elroy walked to the back later that day. He stood in front of the land. It was overgrown and dry. Lizards ran across the ground. The wind blew dust into his eyes. But something about it pulled him in. He walked through the weeds. The ground was hard, but it felt familiar. He remembered coming here as a child. His grandfather had planted yam and cassava here once. He picked up a stick and started hitting the ground, just to see how deep it was. Mama came out with a calabash of water. She watched him in silence. Do you think I can do this? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, you will never know until you try. The next morning, Elroy tied a rag on his head and came out with a small cutlass. He started clearing the grass, one patch at a time. By noon, his hands were sore. His back ached, but he didn't stop. People passing by began to whisper, is that not Elroy? What is he doing with a cutlass? So he came back from abroad to become a farmer. Elroy heard them, but this time he didn't care. For the first time since he returned, he had found something to do with his hands, and that small thing was the beginning of something big. Sometimes the seed you need is already in your backyard. Elroy didn't have money. He didn't have fame, but now he had purpose. The land was waiting. The village was watching, but not everyone was happy to see him rise again. Trouble was coming. The sound of Elroy's cutlass striking the dry ground echoed every morning. From sunrise to sunset, he worked. No shoes, no gloves, just sweat, dirt, and hope. But not everyone saw his hard work. Some saw only what they wanted to see. Elroy, Farmer of the Year, a group of young boys shouted from the road, laughing. After 5 years abroad, he came back to carry hoe, another yelled. A woman selling puff-puff nearby called out to a customer, loudly on purpose. Imagine, all the way to Europe, only to come back and clear bush. What a waste of visa. Even old men sitting by the beer parlor shook their heads. This boy should be ashamed, one of them said. He should go back abroad or at least try Lagos. Farming is for poor people, not returnees. But Elroy kept quiet. He didn't talk back. He just bent lower and kept digging. Each insult was like a stone, but in his mind, he was building something with them. Mama watched from the window. Her heart broke at the words they threw at her son. But every time she saw him lift his hoe again, she knew he was stronger than their laughter. Weeks passed. Slowly, the land began to change. Elroy had cleared half of it. The soil was dark and soft now. With help from a kind neighbor, he got some small seedlings, tomatoes, pepper, and okra. He planted them carefully, row by row, step by step. He watered them every morning. He even smiled once, just a little. But one morning, he stepped outside and froze. The plants were gone. Every seedling, every row, pulled from the soil, scattered. Some were missing, some were broken. Elroy dropped his water can and stood still. His heart sank. Mama, he called out. Someone came to the farm in the night. She came running, looked at the empty ridges, and covered her mouth. Elroy, who would do this? I don't know, he said quietly, but someone doesn't want me to succeed. He sat on the bare ground, staring at the empty space where green once stood. His hands were dirty, his eyes were dry, but inside, his spirit felt weak. Mama sat beside him. Elroy, will you stop now? He looked at her, then looked at the land. No, Mama, he said. I've lost before, but not again. If they want war, I'll give them hard work." And just like that, he stood up, picked his cutlass, and started clearing again. Not every battle is loud. Some battles are fought with sweat and silence. Someone tried to stop Elroy before he could rise. But what they didn't know was that a storm doesn't pierce broken branches. 2 days after the seedlings were stolen, Elroy was back on the land. His hands were sore, his back hurt, but he kept digging. That afternoon, while he was bending low to shape a new ridge, he felt eyes watching him. He looked up. An old man stood by the fence. His wrapper was tied loosely around his waist. He wore rubber slippers and his walking stick leaned against his side. His gray beard moved slightly in the wind, and his face looked calm, but firm. "You plant like someone who is angry," the old man said. Elroy wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. "I'm not angry," he said quietly. "I'm just tired." The man nodded slowly. "Tired of starting again?" Elroy didn't answer. He just stared at the soil. The man looked over the land. "This land is not dead. It just needs the right hands and the right heart." Elroy stood up straight. "Do I know you, sir?" The old man smiled a little. "Not yet, but I know you. You're Elroy, the boy who went abroad and came back to start with a hoe." Elroy's chest tightened. The man walked closer. "I'm Pa Bosco. I used to be the best farmer in this village, but now my bones are old and my children don't care about farming, so I walk and I watch." He paused. "Can I come tomorrow? Maybe show you a few tricks?" Elroy blinked. "You want to help me?" "I want to help the land," Pa Bosco said. "And if you're smart, you'll let me." Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Elroy watched him go, and for the first time in days, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone. The next morning, just as the sun peeked over the trees, Pa Bosco returned, this time with a small sack and a long stick with a flat end. He didn't waste time. "Move that ridge. It's too close to the other one," he said. "Dig deeper here. Don't water in the afternoon. The sun will burn the roots. Use ashes to chase ants. It's free and it works." Elroy followed every instruction. He asked questions. He listened carefully. And Pa Bosco? He taught like someone pouring out the last cup of water from an old jug. Slow, steady, and with meaning. At one point, Pa Bosco stopped and pointed to a small green patch in the soil. "See that?" he said. "That's life trying to grow." Elroy bent and touched it gently. "I thought nothing was growing yet." "The land always listens," Pa Bosco said, "even when you think it's quiet." Every day, the old man came. Every day, Elroy worked harder. People started to notice. He's still farming. And that old man is with him again? What are they doing on that land every day? Nobody had answers, but the bush was clearing, the soil was turning, and something was starting to change. When life knocks you down, sometimes it sends someone to lift you again. Elroy didn't find gold. He didn't find fame, but he found wisdom in old hands. And through those hands, the land began to breathe again. Weeks passed, the sun rose and set. The dry ground became soft. The farm that once looked like a bush now had neat rows, clean ridges, and tiny green leaves pushing out of the soil. Elroy stood at the edge of the land one morning and smiled. "Mama," he called out, "come and see." She came out slowly, wiping her hands on her wrapper. She looked at the ground and gasped. Tiny okra plants were standing tall. Tomato stems had sprouted. The pepper plants were growing their first flowers. Mama Elroy clapped her hands softly and said, "Elroy, this is God's doing." Elroy knelt down, touched the soil, and whispered, "Thank you." The news began to spread again, but this time it was different. He actually grew something. That land was useless for years, and now it's full of vegetables. People began to slow down when passing his farm. Some stared, others nodded quietly. The laughter had stopped. One woman stopped him near the well. "Elroy, my son wants to learn how to farm. Can he come and watch you?" Elroy nodded. "Yes, Auntie, he can come." He still didn't speak much, but his work was speaking louder than any words. Even Pa Bosco, who rarely praised anyone, smiled that day and said, "You listen to the land. Now the land is listening to you." Just as things began to look bright, trouble returned, this time wearing clean shoes and a fancy shirt. It happened one hot afternoon. Elroy was watering the plants when a black car stopped near the edge of the farm. A tall man stepped out, holding a brown envelope. He walked straight to Elroy. Are you the one farming here?" the man asked. Elroy wiped his hands. "Yes, can I help you?" The man opened the envelope and pulled out a paper. "This land belongs to me now," he said. "I bought it last year from the village secretary. You're trespassing." Elroy froze. "What are you saying? This was my grandfather's land." The man waved the paper in the air. "I have documents. Do you have any? If not, you better start packing." By now, Mama Elroy had walked out. She heard everything. "This land has been in our family for years," she said firmly. "Nobody told us it was sold." The man shook his head. "That's not my business. You have 1 week to leave." He got back into his car and drove away. Elroy stood in silence. His hard work, his sweat, everything could be taken away just like that. Mama placed her hand on his shoulder. "Elroy," she said, "we will not let this go. The truth must come out." Just when the seeds of hope began to grow, a shadow returned to cover them. Elroy had faced shame. He had faced hunger. Now, he would face something deeper. A fight for what was rightfully his. The land had come alive. But could he keep it? The next day, Mama Elroy tied her best wrapper and marched straight to the palace of the village head. She didn't wait for permission. She went in and said, "My son is being threatened. Someone wants to take our land. We need help." By evening, the news had spread. The elders called for a village meeting under the old Iroko tree near the market square. Chairs were placed in a big circle. The village head sat in the middle, with 4 elders by his side. The man who claimed to own the land arrived first, holding his brown envelope and wearing dark glasses. Elroy and Mama came in quietly, carrying nothing but a small file. The village head cleared his throat. "Let us hear both sides," he said. "This matter concerns land, and land is not small talk." The man stood up first. "I bought the land last year from the secretary. I have the papers, signed, stamped. I paid good money. If the boy wants the land, he should pay me back or move." He passed the documents around. The elders studied them in silence. Then Mama Elroy stood up. "My father-in-law was the original owner of that land. It was never sold. Nobody told us anything." One of the elders asked gently, "Do you have any proof?" Mama looked at Elroy. Elroy looked down. "No," he said slowly, "not yet. But I know it's ours." The elders spoke in low tones. After a while, the village head raised his hand. "This matter is not clear," he said. "We will give both parties 3 days to bring evidence. If no proof comes, the papers will decide." Elroy nodded. The man smirked and walked away, proud. Mama squeezed Elroy's hand. 3 days, she said. "We need a miracle." That night, Mama didn't sleep. She lit her kerosene lamp and searched every corner of the house. She opened old boxes, removed baskets, lifted mats, and dug behind the cooking stones. In the corner of a broken cupboard, she found a small wooden box, one her late father-in-law used to keep under his bed. Inside were old photos, a rusted spoon, and a folded piece of paper wrapped in nylon. She unwrapped it carefully. Her eyes widened. It was a handwritten note, a will. It read, "To my grandson Elroy, I leave the land behind my house. Let it feed him when the world forgets him." Mama screamed, "Elroy, come!" He ran in, confused. "What is it, Mama?" She showed him the paper. He read it once, then again, then sat down slowly on the floor. "Mama, we have proof." The next morning, they walked to the elders' compound together, carrying the paper like gold. Sometimes the truth hides in silence, waiting for the right moment to speak. Elroy had almost lost everything again, but his roots ran deeper than even he knew. Now, the real question was, would the village believe this forgotten piece of paper over the man with power and money? 3 days later, the village gathered again under the big Iroko tree. The sun was hot, but everyone came. Even children sat on the ground to listen. People wanted to know who would win the land, the quiet boy with the rough hands, or the proud man with papers. The village head stood and raised his hand. "Let us begin," he said. The man with the documents stepped forward again. "I've already shown my papers," he said with confidence. "I bought the land. I have my receipt. I followed the rules." The elders nodded. One of them turned to Elroy. "And what do you bring, my son?" Elroy held the old paper in both hands. His voice was calm but clear. "This is my grandfather's will. It was written before he died. He left the land for me. He said it should feed me when the world forgets me." The elders passed the paper around. They looked at the handwriting. They checked the name. One elder even wiped his eyes and said, "I remember when that old man used to walk around with this box. He always talked about the land and his grandson." The village head stood up. "We have seen both documents. One is legal, one is personal, but one thing is clear. The land was never handed over to the secretary properly. No meeting was held. No witness was present. That sale is not valid." He paused and looked at Elroy. "The land belongs to you." The crowd gasped. Elroy's knees became weak. He dropped to the ground, both hands on his head. "Thank you," he whispered. The other man grabbed his envelope and stormed off. No one followed him. The elders smiled. Mama Elroy wiped her eyes and looked at her son. "You didn't just fight for the land," she said. "You fought for your name." With the land truly his, Elroy worked even harder. He cleared more space. He built a small wooden shed beside the farm to sell fresh vegetables. He wrote a small sign by the road. "Fresh food from Elroy's hands." People started stopping by. Market women came with basins. Traders from the next village came with sacks. Even a woman from the nearby school came to ask if he could supply tomatoes for their kitchen. Elroy stood by his shed every day, smiling as people came and went. He never shouted. He never begged. He just worked. And the work spoke for itself. One morning, Pa Bosco came to visit. "You've done well," the old man said. Elroy bowed his head. "I couldn't have done it without you, sir." Pa Bosco looked at the land and smiled. "This place used to be dead. Now it's full of life. That's because you gave it your heart." Elroy nodded. "And I'm not done yet." That night, he sat with Mama under the mango tree. "I want to do more," he told her. "Not just for me, for the village, for boys like me who think it's over when their plans fail." Mama looked at him and smiled. "Then plant more than food, my son. Plant hope." Elroy won the land. But more than that, he won back his name, his peace, and his pride. Now, he had a new plan. Not to chase dreams far away, but to grow them right where he stood. The sun was high that Thursday afternoon when a clean white pickup truck stopped near Elroy's farm. 2 men stepped out. One wore jeans and a simple shirt. The other wore a branded cap with the logo of a well-known food company from Lagos. They looked around, then walked to Elroy, who was bending near the pepper plants. "Good afternoon," one of them said. "Are you the owner of this farm?" Elroy stood up, his face wet with sweat. "Yes, my name is Elroy. We heard about your vegetables from one of your buyers at the market in Amaka," the man said. "We're from Fresh Basket Foods. We supply to big stores in Lagos, and we're looking for clean, healthy crops grown without chemicals. We like what we see here." Elroy blinked. He wasn't sure if they were serious. "You mean, you want to buy from me?" The man smiled. "Yes. If you can give us 10 baskets of fresh tomatoes every 2 weeks, we'll pay well. You grow it, we collect it." Elroy's heart beat fast. "I can try. I'll do it." They gave him a simple contract, shook his hand and said they would return in 2 weeks to pick up the first order. As the truck drove away, Elroy stood still, holding the paper. "Mama!" he shouted. "Mama, come!" She came running from the house, worried. "What is it?" He waved the paper in the air, laughing. "They want to buy from me, big people from Lagos, every 2 weeks." Mama Elroy grabbed him and held him tight. That night, Elroy didn't sleep much, not because of fear, but because he was full of joy. The kind of joy that comes when a broken dream starts to grow back, little by little. 2 weeks later, the village youths gathered in the town hall for the yearly meeting. There was food, drumming, and speeches. This time, something new was added. A young man stood up and held a small wooden plaque. "We want to give a special award today," he said, "to someone who showed us that failure is not the end, that we can make something out of nothing, that we can stay home and still rise." He turned and pointed. "Elroy, please come forward." The crowd clapped loudly. Elroy walked slowly to the front, eyes wide. He never expected this. They handed him the award. It read, "Son of the Soil, for turning dust into gold." Elroy held it in both hands. He looked out at the faces, the same faces that once laughed at him. "I didn't come back with money," he said quietly, "but I came back with hands. And with these hands, I started again. You can too." The crowd clapped again. Some even stood up. From that day on, people stopped calling him the boy who failed abroad. They now called him something else. They called him Elroy the farmer, the one who turned shame into strength. He left as a dreamer. He returned with dust on his feet. But now Elroy stood tall, not with riches in his pocket, but with honor in his name. But his story isn't over yet. There's still more to grow, more to give, and more to learn. One cloudy morning, just as Elroy was checking his pepper plants, a bus stopped at the village square. It was the same type of old bus he had returned in years ago. From the back seat, a tired young man stepped down, holding a torn bag. His shirt was dirty, his shoes had holes. He looked around, unsure where to go. It was Garrick, Elroy's cousin, the same one who had mocked him years ago, the same one who used to laugh and say, "Elroy went abroad and came back with a hole." Garrick had also traveled. He had gone to South Africa to make it big. At first, he sent photos too, standing by cars, taking selfies in nightclubs. But then, just like Elroy, the photos stopped. And now, here he was, back with nothing. Elroy heard the news by evening. "Your cousin is back," Mama said. "He came alone. No one welcomed him." Elroy thought for a while. Then he washed his hands, stood up, and walked towards Garrick's family house. He found Garrick sitting outside, head down, rubbing his hands together. When Garrick saw Elroy, his eyes widened. He stood up quickly. "Brother Elroy, I didn't know how to come to you," he said. "I've failed. I thought I would make it, but everything collapsed. I was robbed. I lost everything. I'm not even sure what to do now." Elroy looked at him. For a moment, he said nothing. Then slowly he reached into his pocket and pulled out a bunch of ripe tomatoes. "Come," Elroy said. "Come and eat first. Then tomorrow, you'll follow me to the farm. We start again." Garrick's mouth dropped. "You bet you're not angry?" Elroy gave a small smile. "You laughed at me when I had nothing. But now that you've tasted it, you know how it feels. I don't need to punish you. Life already taught you what I learned too." Garrick wiped his eyes. "Thank you. I'm sorry." "Let's build something together," Elroy said. And from that day, the two cousins worked side by side, planting more than crops. They were planting peace. Elroy's farm continued to grow. He added carrots, then spinach, then sweet potatoes. His wooden shed became a small stall with shelves. He painted it bright yellow and hung a sign, Elroy's Farm, fresh, grown with heart. One afternoon, a black SUV with tinted windows stopped at the edge of the village. Two police escorts came down first. Then, from the back seat, stepped out a tall man in native wear, well-fed, wearing sunglasses and a matching cap. People rushed out of their homes. "It's the governor," they whispered. The village head greeted him, surprised. "Your Excellency, we didn't expect you." The governor smiled. "I came quietly. I heard about a boy who came back with nothing and grew something bigger than anyone expected." The crowd led him to Elroy's farm. Elroy was there, cutting vegetables for delivery. When he saw the visitors, he stood up straight, confused. "This is the boy," the governor said, pointing. "This is what we need in this state." He shook Elroy's hand in front of the cameras. "Keep doing what you're doing. If 10 more boys do what you're doing, we won't need to import food." The governor gave Elroy a business grant, 500,000 naira to expand the farm. People clapped. Photos were taken. Elroy stood there, not smiling too wide, just holding the paper with steady hands. He whispered to himself, "This is what coming home was meant to be." He forgave the one who mocked him. He helped the one who left him behind. And now, the same land they all laughed at had brought the governor to his doorstep. Elroy had become more than a farmer. He had become a symbol, a quiet strength, a seed that grew no matter the storm. The first thing Elroy did with the grant money was not for himself. It was for the woman who had never stopped believing in him. He didn't tell her anything. He just started building beside the old mud house. At first, Mama thought it was a new storehouse for the farm. But as the blocks began to rise, and windows were added, and the roof was placed, she began to wonder. One morning, Elroy took her by the hand and said, "Mama, come. I want to show you something." He led her to the small new house. It had 2 rooms, a sitting area, a toilet, and a proper kitchen, painted white, with blue doors and a tin roof that shone in the sun. Mama covered her mouth with her hand. She didn't speak. Elroy opened the door and said, "This is yours. You won't sleep in the leaking room again. You won't cook under the rain again. You suffered too much for me, Mama. Let me give you small comfort." Mama began to cry. "Elroy, my son, my son." She entered the room slowly, touching the walls with her fingers like she couldn't believe it was real. Then she turned and hugged him tight. "You came back with nothing," she whispered, "but now you give me everything." Elroy's eyes filled with tears too, but he didn't cry. He just held her like a child again. And in that moment, there was no shame, no pain, just love. But Elroy wasn't done. The next thing he did shook the village again. One morning, children gathered near his farm to watch him work, as they often did. Some asked questions, some offered to help. That evening, Elroy sat under the mango tree and thought deeply. The next week, he began building a small open classroom near his farm. Just bamboo poles, a roof, and benches. He called it New Roots. There, every Saturday, he began to teach the village children and youth. Not just farming. He taught how to grow food from nothing, how to save money, how to clean tools, how to keep records, how to dream small first and grow big later. He told them the truth. Going abroad is not bad, he said, but if your hands are strong and your heart is ready, you can still rise here. You don't have to run to be great. People started sending their sons. Mothers came to thank him. Even elders sat quietly sometimes, listening to the boy they once laughed at. One Saturday, a small boy raised his hand and asked, "Uncle Elroy, did you really come back with nothing?" Elroy smiled. "No," he said. "I came back with the most important thing. I came back with my mind." From empty hands to open doors, from broken dreams to planted hope, Elroy had turned his shame into shelter, his failure into a future. But before this story ends, there is one more thing, one final moment that would make everything complete. Years passed. The small farm became a big one, the shed became a full shop, the open classroom became a real building with a signboard that read, New Roots Agricultural Center, founded by Elroy Udam. But Elroy never changed. He still wore simple clothes. He still walked barefoot across his farm. He still greeted elders with both hands. He still watered his plants at sunrise. And every evening, when the day's work was done, children would gather under the same old mango tree, just like Elroy did when he was small. There, the elders would tell stories. But now, one story stood above the rest. The story of a boy who left the village with big dreams, who came back with empty hands, who was laughed at, mocked, pushed aside, but who picked up a hoe, touched the soil, and changed everything. The elders would end the story with the same words every time. Sometimes, the richest people don't carry bags. They carry purpose, and the strongest people are not the ones who never fell, but the ones who stood up after falling. The children would nod, the wind would blow softly, and in the distance, the smell of Elroy's pepper farm would fill the air. He was no longer just the boy who returned with nothing. He had become something more. He had become a story that would never be forgotten. So if you ever feel like you failed, if you ever feel like you've come back empty, remember Elroy. Start with your hands, start with the ground, and start again. Because sometimes what you think is the end is just the beginning.